All right. This is that moment of truth. This is that time where I wait for the internet to say, yes, yes, you can. Yes, you can. And it looks like, oh, the YouTube woke up quick today. What's up, YouTube? You win. Rockfin, where are you? Rockfin definitely not in first today. Up, there's Rockfin. Rockfin definitely lost. Rockfin was a little slower today. It's not a competition. Twitter always wins. Twitter is always first. Twitter is always first. And then YouTube and Rockfin, they're always competing for second. And today it was YouTube. Tomorrow it might be Rockfin. But what's up, everybody? On any platform you're on, what's up? Good afternoon to all my East Coasters. Good morning to all my West Coasters. Did you have your coffee? I just brewed another pot. And good evening to everybody in an evening time zone. And to everyone in the future, Australia, New Zealand, climate change. You got to fix it. You have an extra day of science, or half day if we want to get technical, but you're in the future. You have all the science from the future. Find the solution. Text me. I'll tell everybody else. It's simple. Shout out to everyone who makes the show possible. First of all, our friends over at Indie Left. Indie Left is the only place to find all the content creators, streamers, and writers that you know and love. They have a platform that they update twice a day, and they curate content for you. They make it easy to find out everything they got going on, subscribe to everything they got going on, and to join their Discord community, go to independentleft.media. That's independentleft.media. Also, I want to tell you about an event called the U.S. Solutions Summit. The U.S. Solutions Summit will be streamed live on May 22nd. That's a Saturday on KRTD Media on YouTube and all the socials starting at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. They got 6 panels going on. According to them, it's a star-studded panelist lineup, although I dispute one of these panelists. Okay, so one of them, Ron Placone. I don't know about that guy, but other people, Graham Elwood, Justin Jackson, Convo Couch, Hardlens Media, more than a dozen others. You won't want to miss this. I'm excited for it. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a fun event. So go to ussolutionssummit.com. That's ussolutionssummit.com to sign up for email updates. And again, that's going to be happening on May 22nd, starting at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. All right, without further ado, so there's a lot going on in the digital rights space today. And fortunately, I got the perfect guest for it. This is the campaign director of Fight for the Future, my favorite digital rights organization out there that I've had the privilege and honor to have collaborated with in the past. And I always love working with them on different causes. But please welcome to the show, Caitlin George. Caitlin, what's up? You're muted.
Classic.
There you go. Sorry about that.
That's all good.
How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. It's just it's Wednesday, if that means anything. I mean, I don't.
Yeah.
I mean, I know at Fight, y'all aren't necessarily a 9-to-5 organization. You kind of just y'all just kind of slay it out, right?
Yeah, weekends, sometimes flexible weekdays, but yeah, it's Wednesday. I'll take that. I don't know. It's hard to tell what day it is anymore.
I like the art behind you. Can I ask you about it?
Thanks.
Like, is that your stuff?
No, I wish.
Okay.
No, I'm in a Vinyl of the Month club, and each of the records come with a piece of art and just like a little checkerboard with them. They're pretty cool. There's some really cool ones. Some of them are like related to the artist. There's, I think, Nina Simone is around here somewhere. Van Morrison, and then some of them are more like connected to the album. So yeah, kind of fun.
What have you been spinning recently? What has been sticking out to you in the vinyls of the month?
I think right now we've got a John Prine record on.
Nice.
Which, time is hard to keep track of, but that was obviously a sad loss of the past year, but it's a fun one to have. And I think the other one I've been playing a lot of, which isn't a Vinyl of the Month one, but it's Joan Baez record. So I don't know, trying to like keep it easy and activisty, I guess.
Yeah, no, I feel you. And yeah, I want to say, and it has been a blur this past year and change, but I want to say it's been about a year for John Prine, like almost exactly a year recently. that was such a bummer. Such
Yeah.
a brilliant songwriter, and just so many people, that pitched him songs, or that or were influenced by him. I mean, I used to live in
Mm-hmm.
Nashville, so it was like, just the capital of all the John Prine-ness, and it was
Yeah, exactly.
he was one of the kind. I thought I saw him at a wedding once, and it wasn't him. That's the extent of the story. I know. It's like what a great
Classic.
story.
Yeah.
Well, it was one of those things. Like I was like, I think that's actually him.
You're like ready to go up to him.
Well, I kept drinking because it was a wedding, and B, because I was like, I want to meet John Prine, but I'm too shy to say anything right now. And what if it isn't him? And then I was just like, I don't care. I'm going up to this guy. And then they ended up coming up to me, the John Prine doppelganger, and his I'm guessing his wife, and they introduced themselves, and his first name was Peter. And I was like, you're not, unless
Peter
you're messing
Prine?
with me, right? I was like, wait a second,
brother, cousin.
Well, so it's not like he was a random guy, and I was like, that's John Prine. It was at my friend's wedding. They're what's the song when you when you leave, like the ceremony's over and you walk down, like the procession,
like processional.
Yeah. So that song was a John Prine tune, and so the band's playing a John Prine tune, and I noticed this guy is kind of like watching them, and he's got this big old smile on his face, and he looks like John Prine. And I'm like, could it be? Is that him? And I even tried, like, at one point to drop hints in the most unsubtle way imaginable.
Yeah.
Like my buddy's never called me out on this, but I feel like maybe he should at some point. Because like at one point, he's like, "Hey, Ron, you having a good time?" And I'm like, "Is there like anyone I might know who's here?" And he was like, "What? What are you talking about?" Like,
do you want to introduce me to anyone?
Yeah, I was like, you know what I mean? Like, is there? And he's like, I have no idea what you're talking about, but there's a lot of people I need to say hi to. Thanks for making it weird. And he bounced.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, the guy was a John Prine, and that's yeah. So anyway,
that's John Prine story.
That's my John Prine story. Did you ever get to see him live? I never did.
No. I'll do a little shout out though. Our Fight for the Future's deputy director, Evan Greer, just put out an album called Spotify is Surveillance. Pretty good combo of like punk, folky rock music and commentary on our surveillance empire. But she does a cover of a punk cover of Angel from Montgomery. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
So not John Prine live, but pretty good.
Yeah. No, we talked about it. I had her on the show to, talk issues and the new album. And yeah, I did ask her about that. I was like, yeah, what was that was a really cool decision. What led to that? And yeah, I thought she did a great job with that tune. It was a really cool cover. All right. So happenings today, folks, as you may already know, Facebook, the oversight committee, gave a ruling today, and they're upholding Donald Trump's Facebook band. Donald Trump is in a band. They play exclusively on Facebook Live, and everyone got tired of it. What do you think he would play?
I don't know. Yacht rock. Or like I could imagine him being like Jam Bandy and just on and on and on and on and on.
I could imagine him being the world's laziest bass player.
Yeah.
Because like he's one of those people who like really infuriates actual bass players because he just takes up the bass because he thinks it's easier. And he's like, I'm just gonna do this.
And he's like big.
Yeah. So I could picture him just being like the world's worst bassist. Like he just plays one note throughout and then thinks he's crushing it. Bass player in a yacht rock band. I think we nailed it. But anyway, it's not about Donald Trump's Facebook ban, which he does have. It's about his Facebook ban, B-A-N. So they decided to uphold his ban, this Facebook oversight board. But here's what they had to say. And this is kind of interesting. So this is an article from Vox. Donald Trump will stay off Facebook for now, says Facebook's new oversight board. They decided this today. So in an unexpected decision, though, the oversight board insisted that it's not its job to decide, but it's just Facebook's. So Wouldn't you have liked to have been a fly on the wall in that courtroom? Like, it's not really our decision. You're called the oversight board. Yeah, but that was just drunk during the weekend. We don't really. It's just a thing, but that's not it's just up to Mark Zuckerberg.
An extra title, it's just for LinkedIn. Yeah.
There are nearly 3 billion people on Facebook. About 2.8 billion people use Facebook. Most people use it as a news feed or use it as a way to get information. And here they are openly telling us they have no process whatsoever when it comes to content.
Probably like the most transparent they've ever been about that.
Right? And unintentionally. Like they're basically saying, yeah, it's not, we don't know who it's up to. It's not really up to anybody. So not only are you asking something of us we're totally unqualified to do, but we have no process for it anyway. I see no problem here.
Yeah.
So here's Fight for the Future statement. And I think Fight for the Future, I think you all nailed it. I think this is, in my opinion, the only summary of this whole thing that anyone needs to read, and it hits every point. So here, focusing on Trump's ban is missing the point. Facebook's business model is incompatible with democracy and human rights. So today, the Facebook Oversight Board largely upheld the company's ban on Donald Trump, while cautioning that it was not appropriate for Facebook to impose the indeterminate and standardless penalty of indefinite suspension. So here's the statement from Evan Greer, Deputy Director for Fight for the Future. Facebook's surveillance capitalist business model is fundamentally incompatible with human rights. Its monopoly power is fundamentally incompatible with democracy and freedom of expression. When we focus on these individual high-profile moderation decisions like Trump, we are utterly missing the point. Big tech's harms are rooted in their practices of data harvesting and algorithmic manipulation. The vast majority of people who are silenced by big tech are not former presidents or celebrities. They are marginalized people, sex workers, politically active Muslims who live outside the U.S. We can go back and forth all day about where the line should be drawn, but simply demanding more and faster removal of content will not address the very real harms we are seeing. It's quite telling that Facebook refused to answer several questions of the Oversight Board's questions about its algorithms and actual design decisions. We need to strike at the root of the problem, break big tech giants, ban surveillance advertising and non-transparent algorithmic manipulation, and fight for policies that address this parasitic business model while preserving the transformative and democratizing power of the internet as a powerful tool for social movements working for justice and liberation. I feel like that sums it up. That pretty much sums it up. This is what they're really doing. They have no qualifications to be doing the thing that we're talking about. And usually it's marginalized people who are affected by this sort of thing. And what we need are policies that meet the moment. I've talked to Evan about this, but I want to pose this question to you. Do you think it's time for a real digital Bill of Rights? And is such a thing even possible?
I mean, it's absolutely time. We've, I think for a handful of years, been kind of building the plane as we've been flying it, or whatever the language is, that, we don't have policies in place that actually are protecting people. These companies have been building, getting bigger and bigger, getting more and more power. And that's what is being protected so far. It's not about the people, and people are being hurt. I mean, I think these examples that Evan called out about, the people who are actually being silenced on these platforms are, really key. That it's people who rely on them for their well-being, for their livelihood, to, organize. We've heard from tons in the past year of Black Lives Matter activists who've been silenced on social media platforms like Facebook. And so it's putting these people in real harm. And then we focus on the Trumps of the world because it's a big deal. But, even when that happened, that was a political calculation on Facebook's part. And a profit calculation where they determined that, it would not hurt their bottom line and it would help them politically to bump him off. So yes, I mean, we need to be passing legislation and focusing on some potential, digital rights opportunities that will limit censorship, that will get rid of, the power of these tech giants that will get rid of the surveillance advertising and other surveillance tools that are being used on these platforms that will protect people's data and allow them to maintain some level of privacy. I mean, it's way past time. And, I think the problem that we see is that these companies just have so much power, especially in the halls of Congress, that they've been blocking it or intervening for so many years, despite efforts to move some of this sort of protection forward.
Well, and it's remarkable, like when you really just take a step back and look big picture, and y'all at Fight for the Future, you deal with this on a daily basis. It's why organizations like yours need to exist. We're at this very interesting moment in time where technology is way out here and the law is like a couple miles back there, and they're on foot. And, when you look around, even at 99% of our politicians, actually, you know what? I'll say 100% of our politicians, pretty much, for the most part, they fall into two categories. Either they don't understand the internet or they can't handle the internet, i.e. Marjorie Taylor Greene. And that's a lot of our elected officials. I know there's a few who do some good things on digital rights, and that's great. But it's very few and far between, at least.
And they mostly rely on their younger staffers to help get them up to speed on how these things really work.
Totally. Well, it comes down to just, and that's why it's so frustrating, because look, all you need to do are listen to the right people. I'm not an expert on anything, but all it takes is caring about these issues, actually reading a thing every now and again. Why am I against repealing Section 230? Well, for a number of reasons. One of the big ones, I actually read the frickin' thing. I read the frickin' thing and realized that repealing this would lead to a lot of unintended consequences that would not be good. And we're already seeing that. In fact, let's go back to this for a minute, because y'all addressed that in here. Facebook is actively trying to solidify its monopoly power by pushing for false solutions, like weak privacy legislation that protects their data harvesting business model, and changes to Section 230 that would be devastating for freedom of expression while crushing Facebook's competition from smaller companies and websites. You people out there who think that Section 230 is just the thing protecting social media companies, it's not. There's a lot more to it than that. And repealing it would actually make Facebook even more powerful, because it would prohibit another Facebook from ever happening.
Exactly.
It's more important than ever that we look at issues like content moderation and platform power in an intersectional way, which I think is a very, very nice way of saying people who are actually qualified to be making these decisions should be making them. The most dangerous thing that could happen right now is that the public accepts the idea that lawmakers should just do anything about big tech. We need thoughtful policies that actually address harms, not more partisan dunking and working of the refs. Fight for the Future opposes reckless changes to Section 230 that could harm marginalized communities and human rights. We support federal data privacy legislation, robust antitrust enforcement, the restoration of net neutrality. Those are all good.
Yeah.
Those are the right
and it was a couple weeks ago, I think, before a congressional hearing on Section 230, when Mark Zuckerberg came out and said he was open to changes. And similarly, of course he is. They will survive. Facebook is the biggest game out there. They'll be able to, withstand potential legal challenges. They'll be able to silence content that might get them in trouble. And, it'll be the smaller platforms, or the ones that aren't even out there yet, that we need, that won't be able to exist any longer, because they won't be able to deal with the kind of financial burden and legal burden of dealing with having to take responsibility for all the content on their page. So,
Yeah, and a quick refresher. I mean, Evan has been on the show several times. We've dissected Section 230, but like just a quick refresher for everybody. It's Section 230 is basically the policy that upholds free speech on the internet, and it pertains to all users. It pertains to you as a user, me as a user. It pertains to comment sections. It pertains to classifieds. It pertains to everything. It doesn't just pertain to social media platforms. So if you alter this legislation, you're going to have a lot of unintended consequences, and we've already seen it. So yeah, I think in closing here on the Facebook thing, I think Fight for the Future nails it. By focusing on just Trump, you're missing the big picture. And here they are openly admitting they have no process. There's no You're asking Facebook to just determine what is and isn't acceptable content, what is and isn't news. And not only are they totally unqualified to do that, but they have no process on how it's supposed to work. They just pass the buck. The oversight committee doesn't oversee anything. Apparently, they don't oversee. I would have loved to have been in that courtroom. There had to have been someone in that courtroom who, at the very least, under their breath, muttered, "What the fuck?" Like there had to have been at least one person. Yeah. There should have been a collective. What the fuck? It should have been a collective. And you're allowed to cuss here, but you do not have to. But anyway, so let's move on to facial recognition. I know that's the big campaign that you wanted to talk about today. So we'll go to this from March that y'all put out, and this is oh wait, I forgot to switch the link. Bear with me 1 second while I get the right thing up.
It all looks the same.
Right? Yeah. The graphics are similar. I got confused, but here's the right thing. Why we absolutely must ban private use of facial recognition. So in your words, why is that? Why do we need to ban private use of facial recognition?
I mean, we've been talking about the issues with the big tech companies and the sort of tools that they have for surveillance advertising to track and abuse people. And facial recognition is, gets exactly to that. This is technology that can track where you go, who you interact with, what you purchase, what you do, from the moment you leave your house to the moment you come back home. And in some people's houses, if you have a Ring camera, they can even do it from your home. And this is, obviously a massive abuse of privacy and puts people in real danger. And for the past couple of years, we've really been focusing on government and law enforcement use of this technology. But we at Fight for the Future have gotten to the point where we can't ignore the fact that corporations using this technology and the private use of this technology is just as dangerous to people, and needs to similarly be banned and not be allowed to be used anymore.
The Amazon Ring thing, it is such just a chilling moment in human existence, because it simultaneously proves both Orwell and Huxley right. People are voluntarily it's like Brave New World meet 1984. We've made both of them realities. Mm-hmm. You're voluntarily putting up this camera. You're doing it. You think you need it all of a sudden. You never had some random camera at your front door. You need it. All of a sudden, randomly, you need it. And everybody in your neighborhood has it. And there's all these deals with law enforcement that nobody knows what's in them. So basically, your local police force can just look at the surveillance of your entire neighborhood whenever they feel like it. What could go wrong? And these are private companies. I mean, wow. And there were instances where they sent the wrong footage to customers. Mm-hmm. And I mean, it's a freaking nightmare.
Amazon is not taking the security of any of that information seriously at all. And why would they? They're, raking in money. They don't care about the security of it. They want to make people feel unsafe in their communities so that they buy it, or make them feel like they have to track whether or not their, Amazon package showed up. And then, just hand that information over to the police. Well, and everyone's okay with it.
Everyone's okay with it. And this is a guy, Jeff Bezos, who I think is on his way to becoming the country's emperor, But this is a guy who has used information. He knows the value of information. Him, Mark Zuckerberg, they all know the value of that stuff. And this is a guy who has used it in a very deceptive and manipulative way in the past. His whole thing about that second location, that was literally something out of a plot line from a supervillain in a comic book. He lied to the
entire. He's our real life Lex Luthor.
He totally is. He lied to the entire country about we're going to make this second location and we have no idea where it's going to be. Yeah. We don't have it picked out ahead of time. We have no idea where it's going to be. Spoiler alert, it's going to be right near the Pentagon and right in New York, which he was planning on for the entire time. He knew this the whole time. But what did he do in the meantime? He got cities to give him billions of dollars worth of infrastructure and planning information that he has now and can do whatever he wanted. They handed all of this information over in the hopes that they would get these measly jobs that Amazon was offering. Anyone who really took a deep dive into analysis of the whole thing realized that any community that actually got this thing was losing. But so this is a guy, he knows how valuable collecting information is. You think he won't do something deceptive with surveillance footage all over the country?
Yeah, absolutely. And they're a case where they recently announced that they're putting surveillance cameras on all of their delivery vans to ensure driver safety. But, it tracks driver eye movement. It tracks, it's outward facing. It's tracking our whole neighborhood. It's going and having live footage. So if you're walking around your neighborhood, you go by a delivery van, like, you're being watched. This is it seems silly to say like it's Orwellian. It feels trite, but it's so true. It's everywhere. There's no way to escape it. And that shouldn't be allowed. You shouldn't have to, be cautious about leaving your house and walking around in a public space knowing that you're being tracked and not knowing what's happening with that data, and how Jeff Bezos is going to use it to target you to make more money.
So let's go back to this here for the facial recognition specifically. So here's just a few things going on. Wired just reported that Uber Eats drivers in the UK are being fired because of their faulty facial identification software, because basically they have to use these selfies to confirm their identity. But when the technology fails, which happens often, they can't do their job. Workplaces are using facial recognition in recruitment to replace traditional time cards. And again, this stuff fails. There's a racial bias. There's a gender bias. Sometimes they have mismatches up to 98% of the time. As a result of this, cities and towns have outright banned it. College campuses and universities have banned it. Music festivals have pledged not to use it. And that's all thanks to y'all's campaign. Let me ask you this. For me, it's just one of those things. And police abuse these facial recognition databases. These databases are susceptible to hacking. A lot of them have been hacked by various deceptive parties. Police use it to find information on an X or something like that. In London, they were using it to randomly try to find people who had arrest warrants, what could go wrong there when it gets mismatches 98% of the time? I mean, first of all, it's creepy overreach to begin with. But not only is it creepy overreach, you're probably going to get a mismatch. And then you look at the potential benefit of this stuff, and it's just like, what's the benefit? Like, whatever people are like, well, the technology, like, what's the benefit here? You get to feel like James Bond for a second before you go into something. Like, who cares?
Yeah, exactly.
It's like the potential benefits, which we're not even seeing because the technology itself sucks. But the potential benefits are like this at best, and that's being generous. And the concerns are like freaking bigger than this entire room I'm in right now. And it's like, yeah, that's why we need to ban this stuff. There's absolutely no reason for it.
Yeah. And it's something where we've seen a lot of people talking about how it was used to identify people in the January 6th Capitol riot. And it's really concerning that, again, it's similar to, with Trump on Facebook. We can't use these individual high-profile examples to justify, massive surveillance system, especially when we know that more often than not, these surveillance systems are hurting people. They're hurting marginalized and multi-marginalized communities. And we know that's the case. We're seeing that happen. People have been misidentified by this technology. And with the private use, it's something where we know stores can hook up their facial recognition system to publicly available mugshot databases and just decide to ban anyone with a mugshot from entering their store, which, again, disproportionately harms Black and brown people, in part because they're over-policed anyways, so they are disproportionately represented in these databases. And these are the faces that the system works on the least successfully, so it's even more likely to misidentify someone and not let them into a store and ban them from it because they're a person of color.
And you know what? Just touching on the January 6th thing real quick, I'd be curious to know, like, how significant the facial recognition software role actually was, because I have a feeling, like, my guess would be very, very little. Because you know how else people get identified at a high-profile event like that? People posting videos online and somebody in the big scope of the frickin' internet going, I know that person.
Exactly.
That's the other way.
Yeah.
And we don't need this creepy-ass software for that.
It would also work
all the time.
Yeah, it would also work if police, arrest people while they're doing the thing that they illegally should not have been doing by storming the Capitol. But, I guess we've lost that opportunity.
It's so ridiculous. I mean, it's so, like, and again, it just goes into, like, there's no reason for this technology. It does not bring anything positive into the world. Like, and what potential good it has is just such a, like, oh, well, maybe you could walk into a concert and they could just scan your face. I don't want someone to scan my face at a concert. Guess what else they can scan? A freaking e-ticket on your phone. We don't need this bullshit.
Yeah, it really, and it's spreading in so many areas of the private world because people see it as a way to make more money. So, going back to Bezos and gathering information, we know that retail stores want to use this technology to track how you move around their store, what you look at and don't buy, what you look at and do buy. They can track that by your credit card and things like that, but they want to see what you don't buy and where you pause and what you look at. And then based on that, they can, target you with personalized and manipulative advertisements. They can give, individualized prices based on what you look at and what they assume your income is based on, the look of your face or other that they buy online. It's just giving so much information and power to these companies. And, unlike your phone or something like that, you can't leave your face at home. If you go out into the world, if you have to run into a grocery store, your face is there. You can't do too much about it. And so, they're taking a lot of power when they scan your face and take your identity from you, basically.
Well, and they're definitely, I mean, I think you bring up a good point that like data harvesting is another item on their agenda with this stuff. I mean, it's all connected. I mean, the thing we just talked about with Facebook is really connected to facial recognition software.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other thing, that law enforcement is using this for incredibly dishonest means all the time. In fact, here's something that where I'm at. I will always, I mean, I've attended some protests in the past year, knowing the risk, and I wore a mask. Here's the deal, though. I'm going to be wearing a mask to protest forever. And it's not because I don't want to be identified as an individual. I mean, I've spoken at protests before. I mean, I don't care, but it's because I know that they're trying to get information and data to compile on protesters, whatever the cause may be, to have in a database. And so if everybody is wearing a face mask or a face covering, that throws that software off and makes it completely useless.
Bad news is that actually a lot of the software over the past year, they've been improving to use with face masks.
Really? Damn it.
Yeah, real bummer of the
What if I took my glasses off?
I think, like, you know, they measure the distance between your eyebrows and your nose and things like that, you know. And unfortunately, you're a white dude, and the technology works really well on you.
Yeah, I know. Well, and again, I don't care for me as an individual. I care for just I want them to not be able to use it.
Yeah. And this, I mean, this is happening, right? We know for sure that in New York and in Miami, they've used facial recognition against protesters this past summer. Like, we know that's happening. And in, I believe it was in Los Angeles, they, you know, tried to gather data from Amazon Ring along protest routes to track people. So, you know, a lot of times we hear from people saying, well, I don't do anything wrong, so this isn't my problem. You are legally allowed to protest. They are tracking you and can use that against you. And, you know, obviously the government has a long history of tracking protesters, and especially, you know, Black protesters, protesters of color, tracking Muslims after 9/11. Like, you don't have to be doing anything wrong for this to come back and hurt you.
Yeah, that's discouraging. I mean, especially the eyebrow thing, because I'm very self-conscious about my eyebrows. So that's even more disturbing, knowing that taking off my glasses won't help. Face covering won't help when it comes to facial recognition software. Geesh.
There are some really cool folks online who have done videos. A lot of them are like drag artists who have done videos about doing makeup to confuse the algorithms, and a lot of it is about kind of like changing the shape of your face. So that's always an option for when you're going out to public, right?
That's a lot. I mean for me, I'm especially since I live in Los Angeles. Usually when I'm out at a protest of sorts, it's you know, the sun is out and it's kind of hot. I don't know if I want to be in a bunch of
melting off your face.
Yeah, and I feel like I would probably break out in a big rash too, and then it would just be a mess. They'd be like, we don't even give a shit who that guy is. God, he's got bigger problems right now. We don't even. But
he needs a wet wipe. Well, and I think this gets to like our larger point that the onus of dealing with these you know, surveillance systems is not on us. It's not on the individual. It's not on the public. It's, you know, on our lawmakers to protect us from it and to ban it. No one should have to, you know, put massive amounts of makeup on their face to protect their rights when they go out into public. We've partnered with these high school kids from Connecticut who, for a school project, made a tool called InvisiClip, which like you clip onto your glasses and it helps block facial recognition systems, which, like, cool project, and like cool kids that they you know, cared about this, and people, you know, can buy it on our website. But also that should not have to exist. People should not have to do that. We need, you know, our lawmakers to just stop the expansion of this surveillance technology so people can go out into society and be safe.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I might just have to always wear a Batman costume, which is something I've been thinking about for years. Now it's just there's a reason. It's time to just unroll this thing. So, and there have been instances of law enforcement banning it too. Like what we're talking about is not, I believe it was Oakland, California. They banned, they decriminalized mushrooms and banned facial recognition software for cops in like the same couple weeks.
Good week, yeah.
That's a nice combo. Combo. And I actually think it left the opportunity open for compromise. Like I was like, well, they could have compromised and they could have been like, well, the police can use facial recognition software, but only when they're on
if they're on mushrooms. Yeah.
That's the compromise. If you're on mushrooms, you can, if you're just looking for a green goblin and a unicorn, knock yourself out. But that's it. That's the only time.
Yeah, exactly. Those we are seeing more legislation passed. I think we're generally hoping for fewer exceptions like that one. We want to keep them pretty clean bans, but I don't know. We haven't really internally discussed the mushroom carve out, so maybe that's an option. But yeah, more and more cities are passing these bans, which is great. Only one city has passed a ban on private use, and that's Portland, Oregon, which is awesome. There are some places that have some regulations, like Illinois has a bill called the Biometric Information Privacy Act, which requires companies to get consent from people in order to use facial recognition or collect biometric information, which is helpful and has led to a lot of good lawsuits against companies like Facebook and Clearview AI that have broken the law, which we're all pursuing these companies and taking their money. But the problem with those is it requires people to understand the harms when opting into this technology. And again, puts the onus on individuals to fully understand that. And also, in some cases, we're talking about these workplaces where people are required to use facial recognition for identity or to have a job. That's not really, like, if you need a job, it's not meaningful to gather consent to say, yeah, I guess you can scan my face every day and constantly surveil me, when we're in the middle of a pandemic and people are having a hard time, keeping their jobs and putting food on the table and stuff like that. So yeah, we need more. We need more of these laws to pass, and we need companies to also take the lead and commit to not using this technology.
So what are some of the specific upcoming goals of the campaign at this point?
Yeah, so we're kind of at this point where we would love to help pass more of this legislation, but we also know that it's going to take some more work to get people to realize it's necessary. So a lot of what we're doing right now is kind of like the educational component. We launched a letter signed by more than 25 civil and human rights organizations a couple weeks ago calling for a ban on private and corporate use of facial recognition. So trying to get more media attention and consensus around this piece, since it is a newer part of the campaign. And then we're going to start targeting kind of specific industries in order to get them to commit not to using facial recognition, similar to how we did with the music festivals, college campuses. So our first one that we're going to be launching later this month is going to be asking the top retail stores in the country to commit not to using facial recognition, which a lot of them have already tested that. We know Rite Aid has tried using it. We know Walmart has looked into it. So it's definitely something that's going to take some work and a lot of public engagement to call out these places and tell them to commit not to using it on their customers.
So where can people go to learn more and get involved?
Let's see. So fightforthefuture.org for sure is kind of the hub for all of our information. And then banfacialrecognition.com is the hub for our facial recognition work. Both fighting government and law enforcement use as well as private use.
Well, Caitlin, thank you so much for everything you do. I am a big supporter of the cause, and everybody, to learn more, we've been covering it on this show, and we will continue to fightforthefuture.org and banfacialrecognition.com. That's where you can learn more about these issues specific and all the other amazing campaigns Fight for the Future has going on. We'll be back Monday for an official Get Your News On with Ron stream. It's Wednesday. That's our last weekday of the week. And in the meantime, the drill. Lucy, she's asleep on the couch and she's feeling much better. Thank you all for your concern. I appreciate it very, very much. But she is doing much better. And she played yesterday. My cat had an injury, Caitlin. My cat had it. She missed a jump. But she's doing much better. And she played for the first time yesterday.
Nice.
Not because, she had the energy for it for a while, but I wouldn't let her because she had to rest. But yesterday I was like, if you're up for it, we can play. And she was up for it. But thank you everybody for your well wishes. Lucy appreciates it very much, as do I. But Lucy, she says meow, and Caitlin says peace, and I say peace. Fightforthefuture.org. We'll see you next time. Peace, y'all.
Thanks.